Hello everyone and welcome back to the channel. In this video we're going to be doing the clipboard landing page from Frontend Mentor. So you can head over to frontendmentor.io/challenges and then you can click on this card and then we can begin the project. I'm going to say restart because I already completed it, so restart, and I'm going to download the starter files here. And so once it downloads the starter files, then if you navigate into your downloads folder, then you're going to get the clipboard landing page master zip file, which you can just extract. So I'm going to say extract here, and then it is going to extract into this folder, which I'm going to right click and say open with code, which is going to open up an instance of Visual Studio Code into this folder. And then as it opens up, then let me go ahead and also open up the design files, because we're going to need to take a look at the design as we are building it out so that we can get it as close to the design as we can. And this is the desktop preview. I want the desktop design. And so in the desktop design, you can see that we have a top image here. We have the title, we have the buttons, we have this section, we have this grid looking section, and then another title, and then this bigger image, and then a grid, and then another grid, and then this call to action at the bottom, and then the footer. So that is the desktop design. And then if you take a look at the mobile design, they are just stacked one on top of the other. So it looks pretty simple enough to build, and we're going to begin right away. So I'm going to navigate back into VS Code, and then I'm going to go ahead and create an index.html file inside here. So index.html. Oh, wait a minute, there's already an index.html file. So I'm going to create an index.css file. So index.css. And then let me take a look at the mobile. There's no navigation bar, so we're not going to need any JavaScript. So let me go ahead and do this. Back inside my index.html file, let me go ahead and link our CSS file so that I don't forget. So go ahead and link the href into index.css, and then we can begin structuring this out. And so let me see, how do I want to do this? I want to take a look at the desktop design, because the desktop design has more elements. So let me see, let's see. So we have the body all the way to the footer on the bottom. So let's go ahead and do this. Therefore, we're going to cut out this section all the way to this button, which is this one. Cut it out and place it inside a section with a class of showcase. And then let's do this. So a section with the class of showcase, and then we have an image on top. So let me go above this. Let me check the image first of all. So we have the mobile version and we have the desktop version. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to add in a picture tag, and then inside this picture we're going to have a source attribute, a source element which has a media attribute, and we're going to say that for a minimum of 768 pixels, meaning when the device width is greater than 768 pixels, then we want the desktop image to show up. And then by default, meaning on devices that are less than 768 pixels, then we want to add in an image tag, and we want to get the image from BG header mobile, meaning the mobile image is always going to be the default. And then just copy this and then paste it inside here, and then change this to desktop. So by the way, you can do this in CSS if you want, but I just want to do it in HTML because it's just so much easier. And then let's structure this out. So we have the logo on top. So let's begin by adding an article. Let me add it inside an article. And then inside here, we're going to have the logo.svg. And then below this article, we're going to have another article. And then we're going to have an H1 that says a history of everything. And then below this H1, we're going to have a paragraph, yes, that says this text. Cut it out and paste it inside here. And then below this paragraph, we're going to have a UL with two list items. So the UL is going to be these two buttons with two list items, so LI times 2. And then we want these list items to have buttons inside. So this first button is going to have a class, and I'm going to call this class, I'm just going to say btn green, btn-green. And then this second button is going to have a class, and I'm going to call it btn-blue. So let's go ahead and say this one says download for iOS. iOS is capital, and then download for Mac. So download for Mac. And then we can remove this. Oops, remove it. There we go. So that is our first section in the class of showcase. And then we're going to have this second section which says keep track of your snippets, and it goes all the way to complete history. So from here all the way to using the app, so this one. And then we're going to cut it out, and I'm just going to add in another section, and I'm going to give this section a class of section-2 because I can't think of any class names right now. And then you can paste in that text. And then what I'm going to do is, see how this section here is a grid. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to go ahead and cut out this title as well as this text. So from here all the way to here, cut it out and place it inside an article and paste it in. And then I'm going to grab this and paste it inside an h2. So I want this to be an h2, and then this is going to be a paragraph. Remove the space, and then from here all the way to here, I'm going to cut it out and place it inside the div. And then now this div is going to have two articles inside. So the first article is going to be this image, and you know what, because it's only going to be an image, we don't really have to place it inside an article, but I just like to keep that kind of structure. So I'm going to have it inside an article here, and then add in an image coming from /images, and it should be, which image is it actually? Let me see, images / what is it? Computer? Is it computer? I think it should be computer. So image-computer.png, and then I'm just going to leave the alt attribute empty for now. And then below this article we're going to have another article, and then this article I'm just going to paste in this the text that we copied out. And then what I'm going to do is I'm going to grab this first one, so from here to here, cut it out, place it inside a div, and then grab this second one here, cut it out. Is my shift key not working? Cut it out, div, place it inside a div, and then grab this third one, cut it out and place it inside a div. So div, and then what we're going to do is, let me see, we're going to grab this and place it inside an h3. So this one, place it inside an h3, and then this is going to be the text obviously, and then do the same for this. So h3, and then this is going to be text paragraph, and then this is going to be an h3, and then this is going to be text paragraph, and then just remove the spaces so that it looks a bit cleaner. And so the reason why I've structured it like that is because we are going to go inside this div and display this parent div, which has the image as well as the other articles as a grid, so that they're going to appear side by side like in this design. And then the reason why I've added this other div is because I want to be able to style these out so that they are just stacked one on top of the other. And so let's go ahead and deal with this next section, which says access clipboard anywhere. So from, where is it? Only this text. So up to supercharge your workflow. So this text here, I'm going to cut it out, and I'm going to place it inside a section with a class of section-3. And then I'm going to paste this in. And not before you paste it in, actually, let me paste it inside an article. And then this article is going to have an h2, and the h2 is going to say access clipboard anywhere. So remove this text here, cut it out. And then below this h2 we're going to have a paragraph that says the remaining text. And then below this, so below this article, we can just add it here. We're going to have an image coming from /images, and it should be the image devices.png. I hope it is. We're going to find out in a moment anyway. And then let's go ahead and deal with this section next. So inside this section, so supercharge your workflow all the way to easy access. So all the way to easy access, where are you? Here. We're going to cut this out. And then once we cut it out, I'm going to place it inside a section with the class of section. I was on section 3, so call this section 4. Yes, section 4. And then let me see, just paste this in. So we need the first article here. So the article is going to be this one, article. And then I'm going to paste this in and place this inside an h2, and then paste this inside a paragraph, and then remove the space. And then I'm going to grab this, all this text, place it inside a div, and then this div is going to be a grid so that we can display them as 1, 2, and 3. And then because they're going to be a grid of 3 items, then this entire thing needs to be 1 item. So create blacklists all the way to sources. So grab this, place it inside an article, and then I'm going to grab this, place it inside an h3, and then grab this and place it inside a paragraph. And then we need an image on top. So this image is going to be coming from /images, and it is called, where is it, blacklist icon blacklist.svg. And then we're going to do the same for this section, is it? Yes. So cut it out, place it inside an article, and then add an image on top coming from /images. Should be snippets. There's no image like snippets, so let me see. Should be icon text, icon-text.svg, and then grab this, place it inside an h3, and then grab this and place it inside a paragraph, and then remove this. And then finally you can do the same for this. So cut it out, place it inside an article, and then add an image on top, which is coming from images./images/preview. And then we can remove this, place it inside an h3, and then we can remove this and place it inside a paragraph and remove this space. And then what I'm going to do is I'm going to give this div a class of cards. And I forgot actually, but on top where we have our section 2, so for this div, and the div that I am on is currently this one, so this div right here, the one that we created for this one, I'm going to go and let me see, this is the div, this is the parent. So we have a div here and a div here. And oh, I used divs for these ones. I used divs to create these ones. I should have used articles just to be consistent, but it's okay anyway, because articles and divs are interchangeable. But it is better to be consistent just so that when you're looking at the code, then you know what you're looking at. So let me go ahead and do this. Let me go inside this div, and I can't think of any class name because I want to give this div a class name so that you can style it out. So let me just give this a class of computer because I can't think of anything else. And then we're going to style it out. And so let's go ahead, let's go back inside this section. So we need to create this one. We need to create this section here, which has the company icons or logos, not icons. So we're going to go ahead, and below this we're going to have a section with a class of section-5, and then we're going to have a UL with 5 list items, 1 2 3 4 5, yes, and then all of these list items are going to have images. So the source for the first one is going to be /images / should be, which one is it, logo google, logo-google.png. And then I'm just going to copy this part, actually not just this part, copy, and then I'm going to click on this second one and then hold down the Alt key and click on this third one and fourth and fifth, and then just paste it in. The second one is going to say IBM, BM, I can't type BM, okay, there we go. And then the next one is going to say Microsoft, and then the next one is going to say HP, and then the next one is going to say Vector Graphics. There we go. So that is our section, this one right here. And then next, let's go ahead and create this call to action. So grab this part right here, cut it out, add it inside the section with a class of section-6. Once again, because I can't think of any class names, so paste this in, and then grab this, place it inside an h2, oops, paste it, and then grab this text, place it inside a paragraph, and then grab this, and we're going to have a UL with 2 list items, just like we did on the top, and then the list items are going to have buttons. So cut this out. This is going to say download for iOS, second one is going to say download for Mac, and then this button, I'm going to give this a class of btn-green, and then this second button, I'm going to give this a class of btn-blue, so that they can take up the styles of the first buttons on top. And then finally we have the footer, so we're going to create a footer, and then let me see how is the footer structured. So we have the logo, let me see the mobile is stacked one on top of the other. Okay, so for this one, you just have the logo on the left. So let me go ahead and add in an article here with an image coming from /images / logo, oops, logo.svg, and then we're going to have let me see, an article here, and not an article even. Let me just have it as a UL because a UL is a block element. And then we're going to have two list items, so li times 2. And then instead of having links, because they're not going to be linking to any other page, I'm just going to add them in as buttons. So this one is going to say FAQs, and then this second one is going to say contact us. And then we're going to do the same and add in a UL for this second one and then for this third one. So copy this, paste it down twice, and then change this into privacy policy, and then change this into press kit, and then change this into install guide, and then we can remove this last one, and then just remove this text from here. And then let's say we need to add our social media icons here. So what I'm going to do therefore is I'm going to add another UL, and then I'm going to give this UL a class of social media so that we can style it a bit differently. And then this is going to have 3 list items, and these list items are going to be images. So the first one is coming from /images, and it is called Facebook. So icon-facebook, is it? Yes, facebook.svg. And then just copy this text and paste it here and paste it here. Change this into Twitter, and then change this into Instagram. And there we go. So that is our HTML. And then let me go ahead and change this into my website. So https tsbsankara.com, and then change this into my name. And there we go. Would you look at that? That's looking quite nice. So let me go ahead and save this. And in order to open this up so that we can see it on the screen, then I'm going to be using an extension called Live Server, which helps me to launch a local development server right here. So if you want to use it, then you can go ahead into extensions and then just download and install it. But you don't have to use it. Once again, you can open it up however way that you want. So let me go ahead, and if you're going to install it, you can just go ahead and right click inside your HTML and say open with the Live Server. And so once it opens up, you can see that this is what we're going to have as the initial view of the website, which is looking very horrible. And we can begin to style it out. Now remember how we added this image on top using the picture tag? If I reduce the screen size, then at some point you're going to see that the image is also going to shrink down, because we set the picture tag to change the image when the device is greater than 768 pixels. So once you get to 768 pixels, then the image is going to go into the desktop image right around here. And then once you get to less than 768 pixels, then the image is going to reduce right there. So that is just responsiveness that you can add using HTML instead of adding it manually using CSS. So the first thing that I want to do is I want to go ahead and let me just place this to the right and then place this to the left. And let me also remember to change the fonts. We're going to be using the font called however you pronounce this, and then we're going to get it from fonts.google.com. So let me just keep this open. I'm not going to get the font right away. I just want to reset some bit of styles. And then also we are going to probably just style everything out before we get the font. And so the first thing that I want to do is I want to target my all selector, and then I want to set the margin to 0, and then padding, we set this to 0, and then box sizing, set this to border box. And then I also want to set the font family into this one from the style guide, this one, because we're going to get it from fonts.google.com. So just paste it in, and then we're going to have a fallback. So in case this fails to load, then the fallback font is going to be sans serif. So this font family is going to apply for everything, even for the buttons, because by default buttons don't take up the font family of the body unless you specify them to do so. And then what I want to do is I want to have all the images to take up a max width of 100% so that they don't overflow outside of the container, because by default you can see that we have some scrolling on the x-axis which we don't want. So once I save this, then you notice that now the image is contained to the viewport of the device, and we no longer have the scrolling on the left and right. So that is because of this line right here. If I disable it, then this is what happens, and then it introduces this. And then the next that I want to do is I want to remove, let me show you something. Let me disable this. I want to remove these buttons here. So not the buttons, these bullets. I want to remove these bullets. So I'm going to say that for all the ULs to have a list style type of none. And once I save it, you can see that we no longer have the bullets. And then in order to remove this margin and padding, then you need to enable this. And there we go. So let's begin to style everything out. And you know what, let me also just begin by styling out these two buttons. So I'm going to get the button with a class of btn green, and we're going to style it out as follows. I'm going to give it a background color, and the background color is inside our style guide, and it should be wait a minute, what? Light blue, strong sign. It should be this one. And just paste it inside here, save it just to make sure. Okay, and then let me also get the btn blue, and then let me just copy this, paste it here, and then we need to change this into light blue. Copy and paste. There we go. So those are our two buttons. And then what I want to do is I want to go ahead and add two cursors here and here, because we're going to be adding the same styles. So I'm going to click on this first one and then hold down the Alt key on Windows, and then click on the second one, and then now I can add two cursors. And so what I want to do is I'm going to say that for the padding, we're going to have a padding of, let me say, 0.8 rem, 0.8 rem on the top and bottom, and 2 rem on the left and right. We're going to have a border radius of 30 pixels because it is rounded. Yes, it is rounded on the edges. We're going to have a font weight of bold, and then we're going to have, let me see, we're going to have a text color of white. So color here, change this to #FFF, and then bring this on top. And by the way, you can bring it on top by holding down the Alt key and then just using the up or down arrow keys depending on where you want the text to be. Okay, so we're going to have that. So let's save this. Let's see what you have. Almost correct. We want to remove that border, right? So let me go to the bottom here. Let me say border, set this to none. And then on mobile, I want that when I click on it, I don't want to have an outline. So outline none. Okay, and then these two buttons have a box shadow. They have a very slight box shadow. So I'm going to say box shadow. And then I'm going to set this to about 4 pixels on the horizontal, 4 pixels on the vertical, and 4 pixels on the blur. And then the color is going to be basically the same color as the background color of the button. So just copy this here and then copy this here, but we need to add a bit of transparency to it because we don't want it to be like overly visible. So I'm going to add an alpha value here. Okay, not there, but here I'm going to add an alpha value of about 0.2 so that the border radius is just a bit translucent. And then here as well, just set it to 0.2, or let me say 0.4. Let's work with 0.4. Okay, and then I want to increase the blur radius. So the blur radius is this third value. Let me make this about 10 pixels just to see how it looks. I think 10 pixels works better. So let's change that up. Okay, so once we style this button, remember how the bottom buttons also have the same style. So it also styles out the bottom buttons. And let's begin to style it out. Let's begin with our picture tag. And so for the picture tag, what I want to do is I want to go inside the picture tag and access the image so that this one goes all the way to the end. I can do that by just setting the width here to 100%. So that now it goes all the way to the end. And then on top of this, I'm going to go inside the picture tag once again, and then I'm going to position this as absolute so that this text now comes on top of the picture tag. And that does look almost okay, but I've messed something up. Which is this one. Why doesn't this work? Probably because it should be here. No. If I position this absolute, then it messes up with everything. So let me do this. Let's go back on top where we have our picture tag, and let me place this inside a div. And then inside this div, I'm going to give this a class of picture, so that now I can go ahead and access the div with a class of picture and then position it as absolute. That still doesn't work. What? Oh, you know what? How did I forget? You need to add a fixed to this one as well. That's the reason why. How did I forget that? CSS can make it look like a fool sometimes. Okay, so that fixes that. And then what we want to do is I want to go inside this section with a class of showcase. So inside the dot showcase, and I'm going to add a padding of, let me say 3 rem on the top and bottom and 1.5 rem on the left and right, so that it pushes downwards and inwards. How does it look on mobile? Let me just check the spacing that it has on mobile. It has quite a bit of space, so let's increase it to 5 rem. Still not enough. Let's say 10 rem, 160 pixels. Let's say 8 rem. Let's work with the 8 rem. And then what I want to do is I want everything to align to the center. So I'm going to say text align center. And then inside the showcase, I'm going to go ahead and access the H1. So showcase H1, and I'm going to say increase the font size to 2.5 rem, make it bigger. And then, oh, by the way, it is grayed out. Oh yeah, it's grayed out. So all the headings are grayed out. I just noticed that. So what I'm going to do is, I think the gray color is this one. Let's just do a bit of testing, and let me go above this button, the BTN green, and I'm going to say that for the H1, the H2 and the H3, I don't think we added an H4. I'm going to set the color for this to this one. That should be the correct color. There we go. So that the headings are going to have this grayed out color, and then the text is also grayed out. Yes, so let's do that for the text as well. So we're going to go inside the paragraph, and we're going to set the color here too. Let me check. So it should be this second color. Copy this and paste it here for the paragraphs, and there we go. And so now we're going to do this for the paragraphs as well. By the way, let me just remember to have a line height of 1.8 just to separate out the paragraphs just a bit. And then let's go ahead back inside the showcase H1, and let me make this 2 rem. It's a bit too big. And then I'm going to have a margin of 2 rem at the top so that it pushes away from the logo. And then we have a margin of 0 on the left and right, because we don't want to increase the margin on the left and right because we already added a padding here. And then we're also going to have a margin of about, let me say 3 rem on the bottom. Okay, 3 rem is a bit too big. Let me just have 2 rem on the top and bottom. Let's have it as that. And then let's go inside the showcase paragraph, and then let's have a margin bottom of 2 rem to push away from the buttons. How does that look? Okay, the margin here is smaller than this one. So let me say this. Let me say margin of 2 rem on the top, and then 1 rem on the bottom here. And then 2 rem can remain here, that's okay. And then let's go inside the showcase UL, and then we're going to say display flex on this, so that the buttons are now displayed side by side. And why is it here? What? Oh, I wasn't using my entire screen. Okay. So display flex, and then I'm going to say align items center so that they go to the center, and then justify content center, and then we're going to say in case, and you know what, by the way, on mobile they're just stacked one on top of the other. So here, let me say flex direction, set this to column, and then let me add a gap of about 2 rem to separate them one from the other. That's too big. Let's say 1 rem. Separate them from one another. Oh, you know what, these buttons need to have a cursor pointer so that they're clickable. So here, let's just add cursor pointer, and then copy this and paste it here, so that now when you hover over them, then the cursor changes to a pointer. And then let's go ahead and style at this second section. So section 2 dot section -2, we're going to say this. What did I do here? Section 2, we want to get this first article, and you know what, not even the first article. Everything is centered. Everything is centered on mobile, right? So let me go ahead and just say text line center here for everything in section 2, meaning everything is going to be centered. And you know what, even instead of doing it here, what you can do is you can go ahead and define the body tag. So above the H1, you can define the body tag and have everything text line to the center, so that it aligns everything from the top to the bottom, so that you don't have to keep on adding this same style to like every section that you're dealing with. So let's have it as that, and then we're going to go inside the article, which is the first child, and I'm selecting the first child so that I can get this H2 and this paragraph only without affecting these other ones. And then I'm going to say that inside the first child, I want the H2, and then we're going to set a margin on the bottom of about 1 rem to push away from this text. You can see that now this only applies on this H2 instead of everything inside. And then I'm going to say this let's see, copy this and then paste it here and access the paragraph, and then we're going to set a margin on the bottom of the paragraphs of 2 rem. Let me see how it looks. Where is it? Here. So this looks like 2 rem. Is it the same as this one? Almost the same. This is just a bit bigger. So let me say 2.5 rem. And then we're going to do this. We're going to go inside section 2. So inside the parent section, and we're going to have a padding of 0 on the top and then 1 rem on the left and right. What did I do on the showcase? Where's the showcase? I added 1.5 rem on the left and right. So here should be 1.5 to keep it uniform. And then on the bottom, I'm going to add 3 rem. Wait, what did I do on the showcase? I added 8 rem on the top and bottom. So once again, to keep it consistent, I'm going to add 8 rem on the bottom as well, so that it pushes away from this part. You can see this part, this is the 8 rem. And then let's style up this section. So we're going to go inside this div. Is it a div? So the div with the class of computer, and then access the first article and push away from these other ones. So let's go ahead and do this. I'm going to say that for section -2, I want to access the div with the class of computer, and then I want to get the immediate article, which is the first child. And then I'm going to say, just to test it, let me say background color and set it to red. Okay, so we are on the right article, you can see right here. So I'm going to have a margin bottom of about 3 rem here, pushed away from this one. And once you have that, then you can remove this, and you can see that is the entirety of that section of the image actually. And then now we need to access this part here and just separate out these articles. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to say that for section 2, we insert the div with the class of computer still. Let me just make sure here. Then I want to access the divs. So I want to access now these divs. So inside here, access the divs, and I'm going to say display this as a grid. So display grid. And then we're going to have grid template columns to repeat once, and 1 fractional column each, with a gap of about, what did I do on the flex on the bottoms? Let me see. I have a gap of 1 rem. So here, let me also have a gap of 1 rem. Wait, what is happening here? What is happening here? Am I accessing? This is the div. This is the div. Oh, wait a minute. I want the articles. I don't want the gap to apply inside these these items. So I want the article, and the article is the second child. So here we're going to say that get the article, which is the nth child of 2, or you can say the last child. You can just say last child here. It still works the same way. And there we go. So that applies the gap properly. And then still inside this div, I want to access the h3s, and I'm going to say give them a margin on the bottom of, let me say, about 0.5 rem to separate them out from the paragraphs just a bit. And now let me increase this gap to 2 rem. That is much better. And then let's go ahead and deal with section 3. So for dot section -3, and by the way, probably you want to add more classes so that you don't have to do this all the time, but you can do that if you want. So let's go inside section 3, and then you know what, for section 3 I'm going to copy this padding as well, because we're going to apply the same padding. So just paste it here, so that now the padding is going to apply here as well. And then for section 3, I want to access the article. So section 3, I want to get the article, which is the first child. Actually, is that how I structured it? Section 3 article. Oh, section 3 only has 1 article. What am I doing? So section 3, let's just remove this, get the article, and then get the h2. Let's get the h2. And I can't remember. How come I can't remember the margins that I'm applying here? 1 rem. Okay, margin bottom. Margin bottom, set this to 1 rem to separate that from the paragraph. And then grab this and paste it here and access the paragraph and give it a margin bottom of 3 rem to separate it out from the image. And that is going to be our section 3. And then we can go ahead into section 4. So for dot section dash 4, we're going to do this. We're going to apply the same padding. So the same padding here, copy and paste it. You know what, let me add some comments because this is becoming a bit hard to see. So let me place a comment here saying section 4, another comment here saying section 3, and you can add comments easily by just saying control and forward slash. So that's how I'm adding these comments. And then this is going to say section 2, so section 2, just so that I can see where each section is starting. So for section 4, you're going to have that save it just to see how it applies, and it applies correctly. And then what we want to do for section 4 is we want to get this first article and style it out just a bit differently. So we're going to say that for section 4, we want the immediate article, which is the first child, and then we're going to say give this, you know what, not even that, we're going to access the h2, and we're going to say give this a margin bottom of 1 rem to push that from the paragraph, and then just copy this and access the paragraph now, and then give this a margin bottom of 3 rem, and that's what happens. And then once we have that, then we're going to go back inside dot section 4, and then we're going to access the div with a class of cards so that we can say display grid on them with grid template columns to repeat once and with 1 fraction column each. And then we're going to have a gap of about 2 rem so that now these separate out. You can see how they separate out. Now let me increase this to 3 rem just so that it's a bit bigger. And then inside this div, the class of cards, we're going to go inside the articles, and then we're going to be accessing the images, and then we're going to get the we're going to give the images a margin bottom of about 1 rem to separate it out from this text. See how now they're separate. And then we're going to copy this part and access the h3s now. So it is h3s inside, and we're going to give the h3s a margin bottom of 1 rem as well to separate it out from the paragraphs. Let's see how it looks in the design, and it looks quite nice. Okay, not this margin is a bit bigger. The margin here is a bit bigger, so let me make this 2 rem. Let's see. Yeah, let's work with 2 rem. And then that is that section, and then the next section you need is this part. So section 4, so let's place another comment and say section 5. And then for section 5, we're going to have a padding, the very same padding that we've been adding. So copy this and paste it here. And then let me see what we need to do for section 5. We only have a UL inside here. So for section 5, we're going to access the UL, and I'm just going to say display flex, which is going to place everything in raw form, as you can see. And then I'm going to change the flex direction into column because they are stacked one on top of the other on mobile. Yes. And then I'm going to say align item center and justify content to the center so that everything pushes to the center. And then to separate them out, I'm going to have a gap of about 2 rem. And you know, these images are a bit too big, right? Yeah, they're a bit too big on mobile. I mean, in our design here, what we are seeing here. So let me reduce them. So section 5 UL, LI, and then image. We're going to reduce the width to about, let me say, 8 rem. Actually, no, that's even looking okay. So 8 rem is looking okay. And then let's go ahead and deal with section. What do I call this section? Section what? 6. Okay. So place in another comment and say section 6, and we're going to be accessing section 6 here, and then we're going to say give it the very same padding that we had on top. Okay, and then let me see how I structured it. So we have the h2 paragraph UL. So I'm going to say that for section 2 I want to access the h2, for section 6 not 2 or 5, and I'm going to have a margin bottom here of 1 rem. And then for section 6, for the paragraph, I'm going to have a margin bottom of 3 rem. And then for the section 6 and for the UL, I'm going to say display flex, align item center, and justify content to the center with a gap of about 1 rem. And then I want the flex direction to be column so that they're stacked one on top of the other for the buttons. And there we go. I think I added a gap of 1 rem here. Yeah, that is correct. And then finally, we need to style our footer. So for the footer, we're just going to access it using the element name because I didn't give it any class You can see it doesn't have a class. And so for the footer, we're going to do this. It has a background color. And the background color should be this grayish blue. I hope so. Paste it in. Okay, that is not the one. Let me see how it looks. It's very, like, it's a very slight gray. A very slight gray. So is there any other color? There is none. So let's go ahead and just add an opacity here of about 0.1. That's too light. Let's say 0.2. Yeah, let's work with 0.2. And then we're going to have a padding here of about 4 rem on the top and bottom and 1.5 rem on the left and right. There we go. There we go. And then once we have that, then I'm going to go inside the article. So footer article, and then I want to access what? The footer article. So this footer only has one article. Oh, you know what? This is also a footer. I don't want this to happen. This should be a div. Change it into a div. Otherwise, it's going to mess up with your styling. Yeah, it's going to mess up with your styling. What's wrong with Prettier? What is it saying? Formatting completed. Okay. So let's go ahead and do this now. Let's see, for the footer article, I want to get the image, and then I'm going to have a margin bottom. Let me not place the margin bottom on the image. Let me just place it on the article. Let's say margin bottom of 3 rem here. And then now let's access the image. And then for the image, I want to reduce the width to about 2 rem, just so that it's reduced just a bit. Okay, that's too much. 4 rem. Let's have it as that. How does it look? Yeah, that's about right. And by the how does it look even on mobile or top? It's bigger. Okay. So let's go back to the bottom, and then let's tell out this section, and we're going to say that for the footer, we want to get the ULs, and then for the ULs inside we want to get the list items and then the buttons, because I don't want this, like, the default styling of the button to be applied here. So I'm going to give the buttons a background color of transparent with a border of none, with an outline of none, with a cursor of pointer. And then let me see, we're going to give this a color of this very same gray one that we had on the text. That should be the one. There we go. And then we want to give this a font size of 1 rem, because by default buttons don't have the font size of 1 rem. And then move this upwards. And then now we're going to go inside the footer UL, so above this, and not even the footer ULs, but the footer UL and LI, so inside the list items, and give them a margin bottom of about 1 rem to separate them one from the other, like so. And then now I'm going to go inside the footer UL which has the class of social media. Remember, so this one right here. And then I'm going to say display flex on it, so that now they're going to be applied, they're going to be styled in raw form. And then I'm going to add a margin on the top of about 3 rem to separate it out from the text. And then I'm going to go back on top of this, and I'm going to say align item center and justify contact to the center, and then add a grid gap of 2 rem to separate them out. There we go. And then let's also add a cursor of pointer here, and voila, that is going to be our footer. But let me also go inside the attribution. Remember, the attribution is right here, so you can style it inside here if you want, but I'm going to cut it out, remove it, and remove this as well, and then save it. And then I'm going to add it in on the bottom here, so that now I'm going to increase this to 12 pixels, and then I'm going to add a padding on the bottom of 2 rem, so that now when you scroll, it has a bit of scroll space here. And now let me set this to 14, just so that it's a bit bigger. That's looking nice. Okay, and that is going to be our mobile. So now what we need to do is just scale it up for desktop. And let's just begin. Should we begin from the bottom going up? Let's just begin from the bottom going up, right? And so we're going to begin at about 768 pixels. So we can do that by adding media query. So I'm going to say at media and say that for a mean width of 768 pixels, then what I want to have is the following. So how we want it to appear is we want this to appear as grids. And so we're going to go inside the footer and I'm going to say this. I'm going to say display grid on the footer with grid template columns to repeat twice with one fractional column each. Let me see how it looks. So now it appears 1, 2, 3, 4, and 5. So this is technically good on tablet size screens, but on large screens like 1024 pixels, then we want this to apply as 4 grids. I think it was 4 or 3. Let me just see. It was 1, 2, 3, 4, and then the fifth one. And it's not even 1, 2, 3, 4. Actually, I'm looking at this wrongly, because it seems as though this part here is more to the left, meaning it's closer to this one, and then this part is its own section. So let me go ahead and do this. Let me go ahead and add another media query here. So paste this on the bottom and change this to 1024 pixels, meaning when the device width is greater than 1024 pixels, which is about laptop size screens, then I want this to be 4 grids. Let me see how it looks. So 1, 2, 3, 4, and that's not what I want. I want this to be 5 grids. So that is 1, 2, 3, 4, and then 5 here. And then what I need to do now is, let me see, we need to reset something. Where did I add a margin? I added a margin on this one. Let me remember. Let me place it full screen. So I added a margin bottom here. So this one, so just copy this and then right at around 768 pixels. Then I'm going to paste it in and I'm going to say margin bottom, reset this back to 0. So that now we don't have a margin on the bottom. Let me see how it looks. Oops, you know what? This should still apply here. So remove this from here and paste it here. We want the margin bottom to still apply when the text is still appearing below the logo. So save it here, and then now the margin applies, but on large screens the margin doesn't apply. And then what we need to do is we need to remove the margin on the bottom of the list items. Remember how we added a margin bottom on the list items here? So just copy this, and then right at around here we can paste it in, and then we can set this to 0. We can set this to 0, and it's going to squeeze everything up, and so we need to fix that. And then we also need to bring the text back to the left. And so how we do that easily is just by going right at around 1024 pixels and setting the body here. Remember we set text align center on the body for everything. So at about laptop size screen, then we want to say text align left, text align to the left. So it's going to mess up quite a bit. You can see how it messes up everything, but we're going to fix it anyway. And so that fixes that. And then now what we need to do is we need to access the ULs inside here so that we can add a grid on them, a grid gap, so that they separate out the text. I can't speak. So let's just copy this and paste it on top of this and say display flex and see what happens. So that now they're aligned in raw form. And then I'm going to say flex directions, set it to column, so that now they're going to be stacked one on top of the other. And then I'm going to add a gap of about 1 rem to separate them out. And would you look at that? Now we are back to normal. And then we need to change this one up because we don't want it to appear like this. So we're going to say that for the footer and for the UL that has a class of social media, social-media, then we want the flex direction because it already has display flex on it because it is a UL, right? So here we're going to set the flex direction to row. So that now it's going to go back to this. And you know what? We don't want this to align item center because we want it to appear on top. So I'm going to say align items. Wait, is that correct actually? Flex start. Is that correct? That is not correct. So this shouldn't be here. This should be here. So that the items are aligned on top. Oh, that's not correct. What? Oh, this UL has a gap. Not a gap, a margin. Where is it? Here, it has a margin top of 3 rem, so we need to reset that. So here, let's reset the margin top to 0. So that now it's going to go back on top. And that seems like it does nothing even. Interesting. So what we need to do is we need to limit everything so that they don't go all the way to the end, because on large screens, then this is how it's going to look and you can't really read the footer, right? So what we need to do is we need to add a max width on the footer. Now you would think that just by going here and adding a max width and setting this to about, let's say, like 1200 pixels, that it would fix it. But it technically does fix it, but the problem here that you see is that now the background color doesn't span the entire width, and we want it to span the entire width. So we're going to have to mess up our styling a bit. So what I'm going to do therefore is this. I'm going to go inside the index HTML and go to the bottom where we have our footer. And then what I'm going to do is I'm going to cut out this footer, cut it out, and then I'm going to place it inside a div with a class of footer. You know what, let me say footer dash container so that it doesn't confuse us. Container. So in the footer container, so in the parent div, because I don't want to mess up the style that we have in the footer. So inside the parent div of footer container, we're going to add our background color and then add in our max width on the footer. So what I'm going to do therefore is this. Now look at this. Once it resets, then nothing changes. But if I go ahead and now remove this from here, then of course, once again, now it's going to span the entire width. But on top of this, if I access the footer dash container and then paste in our max width, now look at this, it goes back to how it was before. So therefore what we want to do is we want this max width to apply only inside the footer. Now when we do that, nothing changes because the footer here has the background color. So what we need to do is just get where we have our footer. Where is it? Here. So footer background color, and then what we're going to do is we're going to change this footer here into the class of dot footer dash container, and then that is going to fix it. You can see that now the background color spans the entire width. And then now in order to move everything here to the center, then we're going to go back inside the footer container here, and I'm going to say, sorry, not inside the footer container, remove this from here. Inside this footer, we're going to say set the margin to auto, meaning set the margin to equal values on the top, bottom, left, and right, so it pushes everything to the center. And that's how you do that. Very simple. And you know what, this attribution is styled wrongly, so I want an equal margin on the top and bottom. So for the attribution, I added, where is it? I added padding bottom here. Let me change this into padding of 2 rem on the top and bottom and 0 on the left and right. Now let me say 1.5 rem on the left and right to keep it consistent with everything that we had. And that's looking better. And then let's style up this section here. So section 6. And for section 6, what we're going to do is this. Let me see how it looks. So right at around here, it's still looking okay. But about 1024 pixels, then it is now aligned to the left. So what we're going to do therefore is this. We're going to go above the footer and we're going to say that for section dash 6, then we want to have a max width of 1200 pixels with a margin of auto, so that it's just centered the way we centered our footer. And does that do anything? No, it doesn't do anything. Oh, it does actually. You can see that now it is now limited. It doesn't go all the way to the end. And you know what, we're going to be repeating this a few more times. Let's just copy it so that we have it in our clipboard. And then what we need to do now is we need to access this article here and push everything to the center. So I think it was section 6 and then the article, where you can say text align center for everything. Oh, it wasn't the article. Let me just see. Section 6. Oh, wait a minute. Section 6 doesn't have an article. What am I doing? So for section 6, let's just say text align center. That should center everything. And then let's access the UL here. So we're going to say dot section 6 for the UL. Then we're going to change the flex direction into row. Remember, because it is a column by default. And then let me see, this text is also limited for the paragraph. So what I'm going to do is below this, I'm going to say section dash 6 and access the paragraph, and then give this paragraph a width of about, let me say 60%. How does that look? No, let me not use percentages. Percentages are weird in CSS. So let me say about 500 pixels for the paragraph, right around there. And then in order to move it to the center, then you just need to add a margin of auto. That now it's going to move to the center. And you know what, margin of auto, see how it messes up because we added a margin on the paragraph. So what we need to do is we need to say margin of 0 on the top, auto on the left and right, and then 3 rem on the bottom because it is 3 rem. So the margin of auto on the left and right just ensures that it applies an equal margin on the left and right, so that now it moves to the center, and that's what happens here. And then another thing that we need to do is for the H2s here, we need to increase the size of all the H2s on about 1024 pixels. So what I'm going to do is right below the body here, I'm going to say that for the H2s to have a font size of about 2 rem. How does that look? How big is that? That looks okay. So this adds responsiveness for all the H2s, even this one that you have here and even this one here. So just a simple way that you can do some bits of optimization. And then next, let's go ahead and deal with our section 5. So section 5 is going to go above this. So section -5. And we're going to say that for section 5, it only has a UL, if I remember correctly, which we displayed as a flex. So we're going to change the flex direction here to row, so that now they're going to be there like that. And then we're going to increase the gap here to about 4 rem. Increase the gap, let's say about 6 rem. Okay, 6 rem does look okay. And then let's just add on section 5, let's just add a max width here. Remember what we copied, just so that it is limited and it doesn't go outside of the container. And that is section 5 dealt with. And then next we need section 4. So above this, let's say that for section 4, then we're going to do this. What we need to do is we need to grab this, and you know what, let me see how it is. Everything is aligned to the center, so let me just say text align center on section 4. There we go. And then let's go inside this div with a class of cards and display it as a grid. I think that's what I called it. Section 4. Yeah, section 4, the div with the class of cards. So let's go back inside our CSS, and let's say that for section 4, let's go inside the div with the class of cards and say display grid. Oh, wait a minute, I already displayed this as a grid. Let me just find it. Yeah, I already displayed it as a grid here on top. So let me go to the bottom, find this text where it was in the bottom. Where are you? Here. Because it's already as a grid, what I need to do is just change the grid template columns, and here I wanted to repeat 3 times with 1 fractional column each. So that now it's going to be 1, 2, 3. And then for section 4 here, we're going to add our max width, so that everything is limited. And would you look at that, that is section 4 dealt with. And then next we need to go ahead into section 3, which is this one right here. And for section 3, we're going to do something almost similar, and section 3 is going to be above this. So section -3, we're going to have a max width first of all. There we go. And then we're also going to say text align center. And there we go. That is section 3 dealt with. But for section 3, I think this paragraph also needs to be limited. It's limited as well. So let me go ahead and say this for section 3. Section 3, let's access the paragraph, give this a width of 500 pixels and a margin of 0 on the top, auto on the left and right, and 3 rem on the bottom. That's how it was. There we go. That's looking okay. And then for section 2, which is going to be a tricky section, because see how the image is styled here, it's going to be a bit tricky to do. So let's go ahead and do this for section 2. So I'm going to say that for dot section 2, then let me see how we style it. Section 2, how do we structure it? We have the first article here, which I need to align to the center. So right around here for section 2, I want the article, which is the first child, and then I'm going to text align center. There we go. And then we are going to do this as well for section 2. Actually, you know what, for section 2 we also need to have a max width, so paste in our max width. Okay, and then we need this paragraph to be limited, so we're going to say that for section 2 we want the article and we want the first child, and then we want to get the paragraph here. We want to give it a width of 500 pixels, so that is limited. Is it 500 pixels here? Yes, it's 500 pixels. I mean, it's almost. And then we're going to give it a margin of 0 on the top, auto on the left and right, and 3 rem on the bottom. There we go. You know what, let me make this 600 pixels because it's looking a bit squeezed for me. So let's say 600 pixels. And then now what we need to do is we need to go inside this div. Remember, this image and the text is inside a div, so we need to go inside that div and display it as a grid. So the div with the class of computer. So below this, we're going to say that for section 2, we want to access the div that has a class of computer. And then I think we display this as a grid on top, did we? Okay, we did not. So let's just go ahead and say display grid with grid template columns to repeat twice and one fractional column each. So that we're going to have this. And then here we're going to have a gap of about 4 rem. So that we're going to have that. What is this space? What is this space here? Let me remove this. Let me see something. So what is this space? Okay, now let me also say align item center. Align. Wait, is it align item center or place item center? Okay, align item center. That works. You can see that works. Now what we need to do is we need this image to be offset a bit so that it goes all the way to the end. So what I'm going to do therefore is this. I'm going to go ahead into this div with the class of computer. So for section 2, for the div with the class of computer, I'm going to access the article. So this first article, and I'm going to say that for the article, which is the first child, and I'm going to say position this as absolute. Let me see what happens. So you can see that is what happens, and it begins to mess up everything, right? And so therefore what I'm going to do is inside the parent, which is the div with the class of computer, I'm going to say position this as relative, so that now it's going to be positioned relative to the parent div. And then I'm going to say, actually this is not going to work. Let me just try it out. So let me say left of 0. Yep, it doesn't work. It doesn't work. So if I say right of 0, it's still not going to go all the way to the end. And then you can see it messes up with this. It messes up with that, right? So absolute positioning is not going to work. So let me remove this. Actually, let me just remove the styles. Then let's remove this as well. And then let me go inside the first child here and access the image. Let me see if I position the image as absolute, what happens? Okay, that happens. And if I bring it to the top by 0, then it's going to go all the way to the top. Right. But I want it to be on the top of this this section. So inside here, I'm going to say position relative and then bring this to the top. And then I'm going to say bring it to the left by 0, meaning it's still going to be there. But if I say left of minus 20 viewport widths, it's going to go there. And then reduce the width of the image to about 10 rem, 160 pixels. Too small, 100 rem. Too big, 60 rem. Still too big, 40 rem. Too small, 45 rem. Okay, and then I need to go back on top just a bit. So I'm going to say bring it to the top by minus 10%, minus 30%. Okay, I'm seeing something. Let me bring it to the top by minus 20%, so that it's not so close to the paragraph here. Or you know what? Let me go inside this paragraph and increase the margin on the bottom. And the paragraph is going to be here. Let's increase this margin to 5 rem, to 6 rem, make it bigger, 8 rem, let's say 6 rem. And then still inside here, inside this section, let me increase the padding on the bottom. So padding on the bottom, where did I place the padding on the bottom? Was it on section 2? Let me say padding dash bottom of about 10 rem to push away from this one. That's still too small. Let's say 20 rem. Okay. And then what we need to do is increase the size of this image, and the image is here 45 rem. So let's say 55 rem. 50 rem. We can have it as 50 rem. That's looking okay. That is looking okay. Okay, fantastic. And then now what we need to do is we need this to display as a row. So let's go ahead and this is the class of showcase. So for the dot showcase, we want to access the UL and change the flex direction into row. There we go, there we go. And then now we need to increase the size of this H1. It can't be the same size as the H2s here. So above this, we're going to say that for the H1, we're going to increase the font size to about 4M. How big is 4M? Wait, this won't work. It won't work because we increase this size differently on top. So what we need to do is we need to access the showcase and for the H1 and then change the font size to 4M. And the reason why it didn't work is because we changed the font size of this H1 by accessing the parent class of showcase first. So if in order to change the size of the H1, then you need to access it the same way that you did on top. That is something about CSS that I really don't understand why they did. Let's reduce it to 3rem. Yeah, that's looking okay. And then now just to make sure everything is okay, then this paragraph doesn't span to the end. It doesn't span to the end. So let's limit the paragraph. Showcase paragraph, give this a width of 600 pixels. Let's see. Okay. And then give it a margin of 0 on the top, out on the left and right, and 3rem on the bottom. There we go. Now let's take a look at tablet size screens to make sure that everything is still okay. So right at around here. Okay, this is looking okay. And you know what, for tablet size screens, I guess we can display these two items side by side. So you know what, let me remove this from here and place it at 768 pixels above this, so that now this displays as 2 items for tablet size screens, and then this can remain the same, and then this is still the same, and you can see that nothing changes here. And you know what, probably even for this one you can display it as a flex, but let's change it for this one as well, for the bottom, which is about section what? It was section 5. No, it wasn't this one. It was section 6, this one. Remove it from here and then place it above this, above the footer, so that this now displays side by side. And then finally, let's also display this side by side, because I'm feeling like there's too much space here for nothing. So that should be in section 5 UL. Let's grab this from here and then let's paste it above this, so that now this is going to happen. But what I want to do is I'm going to add a flex wrap here of wrap, so that in case they reach the end, as you can see, that they automatically go into the next line. So that is just to add a bit of responsiveness, as you can see right there. That's looking okay. Fantastic. And would you look at that, that is the Clipboard landing page almost complete. What we need to do is we need to get the font. So let's go ahead and grab this font. So inside our style guide, let's just click on this, control and click, and then let's get the 400 and 600 font weights. Let's get the 400, the regular 400, and the semi-bold 600. Let's use the import and grab this, copy, and then inside our index CSS, let's paste it on top. Paste it on top. There we go. And then when you save this, because we already specified the font family here, then everything should reset in our application. Would you look at that? Now the font is correct and it is looking quite nice, except that now the font is a bit smaller. I'm just realizing it's a bit smaller. So let me show you something that you can do just to fix everything. When you go to your media query of about 1024 pixels right around here, what you can do is above this, you can specify the paragraphs. The paragraphs to have a font size of about 1.25 rem, because 1.25 rem is about 20 pixels. You can see they grow just a bit, right? They grow just a bit bigger. And then what I want to do is I also want to increase the size of the H3s, because I'm seeing they're a bit smaller. So right around here, let me say that for the H3s to have a font size of about 1.5 rem, which is about 24 pixels. You can see now they're a bit bigger, right? And would you look at that? You know what, let me also increase the size of this H2 to about 2.2 rem, just to make it a bit bigger, 2.5 rem. Yeah, that's looking okay. That is looking okay. Yeah, I like how that looks. And you know what, I've just noticed something, that this margin is a bit small now that we increase this to 20 pixels, then let me also increase this margin. So this is section 2. It should be section 2 on the paragraph. Where is it? Here. Increase this to 10 gram, just so that this spacing increases. You see that is much better, right? And that's looking okay. So let's go ahead and deploy this to Netlify. So let's open up Netlify. I have Netlify here, and then we have our front-end meta page here, but we also need to deploy it. So let me deploy to GitHub. So GitHub, and then we can shut everything down here and just close everything and close our live server. And then using Control and J to open up our terminal, let's navigate into terminal here, and then let me say git init, which is going to initialize a git repository, an empty git repository. And then I'm going to say git add design, and then I'm going to say git commit -m with a commit message here that says design files. And then I'm going to say git add images and git commit -m. I'm going to say images, and then git add index.css and git commit. I'm just going to say index.css, and then git add index.html and git commit -m, and I'm going to say index.html. And then I'm going to say git add everything else. So git add dot, meaning git add all, and git commit, and I'm going to say initial commit. And then let's go ahead and create our repository here. So I'm going to create a new repository, and I'm going to call this Clipboard landing page -yt, and then create repository. And then let's copy this link, and then let's say git remote add origin, and then paste in our link, and git push -u origin main, which is going to push it to our remote repository on GitHub. So let this push, and then we can see the changes. And so once it pushes to GitHub, then you can reload this page and you'll be able to see your changes. And so let's go ahead into Netlify, make sure that we're logged in, and we need to search for Clipboard landing page. So add a new site from an existing project from GitHub. And I'm just going to search for Clipboard. And then let's deploy this. Loading, and then deploy site. Deploying. And then let's change the site name here. Let me say tsbsankara. Let's say clipboard landing page -yt. A long name. Okay. So save it. And then make sure that it has deployed. So click on this, and we should have this. There we go. So our site is live with everything, looking fantastic. And so let's go ahead now, and you know what I've just realized? This text is small on the buttons. It's too small. So let me just fix that by going inside our CSS, and then let me go above, let me go here and add the buttons here to have a font size of 16 pixels. And then once again, I'm just going to commit the changes. So git add all and git commit, and I'm going to say increase button size, font size. Let me say font size. And then I'm going to say git push, and it's going to trigger a redeploy on Netlify. So as that triggers, let me copy this link and then go back into Frontend meta and say submit solution. And the live site URL is this one, and the repository URL is this one. So copy and paste it. And then I'm going to say mobile first, and it's called Clipboard landing page using vanilla HTML and CSS. And then I can just say submit solution, and then we can wait a moment. And there we go. So let's go ahead and say view solution, and we have our solution. Let it load. Oh, here it is. So you can see that we have this is our solution, and then this is the design. So you can see that we did quite a nice job, right? We did quite a nice job of it. Look at this. Would you look at that? That is looking quite nice. Quite nice, right? Okay, so that is going to be the end of the video, and if you enjoyed it, then please leave a like and subscribe to the channel if you're not already, and I will see you in the next video. Bye. Please subscribe to the channel if you're not already, and ring the notification bell so that you're always going to be notified of when I upload a new video.